Here's the outside wall thimble for the pellet stove, and what's brand new here is fresh air, external fresh air tap. I got some 1/4-inch wire mesh that I put on here to help keep the rodents out in a clamp. It's what I had. It's not pretty, but it's you know, very functional. I'm gonna eventually caulk this. It stays cold because it's fresh air, so I just put some tape over it because we had some rain coming, and just kind of wanted to do the proof of concept, and it works great. I will go inside and show you the same things I did inside and a couple other details, because now we have a backup power supply to run it in case the power goes out, because in this area the power goes out an awful lot. Alright, be right back. Alright, on the left you can see the exhaust tubing, and on the right you can see the 2-inch diameter flexible air intake. It's a flexible automotive exhaust. I picked up a piece that's probably 3 times longer than that for like $15 or something. I got mine at Oreillys, but you can get it anywhere, and it fits pretty well. It's called 2-inch, but I know it's slightly smaller. And the reason I know that is because here's the hole saw I used. Let's see, and it said, well, it used to say 2-inch on it. The hole saw is pretty accurate. It says 2-inch. You can use any hole saw you like. This one worked really good because it had to go through the steel thimble, the black thimble here, and then it had to go through the drywall. And it was fine. It went through no big deal, and the hole saw makes a hole about 1/8 of an inch bigger than the 2-inch flex tubing. So that gives you some wiggle room to get it through the wall. I had a piece of Romex in the wall that was really close to being in the way, and I just shoved it out of the way with screwdrivers and moved the pink insulation, fiberglass insulation, out of the way with a screwdriver just so you have a clear path. And that worked pretty well. So again, it's got the aluminum on the inside. It's just a proof of concept. I'll neaten it up another day in the future when I've got the time. But it's working really good. You can see at the beginning and the end of the video, you'll see what the flames look like. They're I don't know, the only way I can describe the flames is they look really angry. So I think it's working good. I think it's working really well. These blue pieces of tape were to mark where the studs in the wall were when I was putting in the blue thimble. I had to kind of know where everything was so I didn't wreck anything. And it worked out really good. Now, let's see, what else is new? Oh yeah. Let's turn the light off. Let's see if I can turn this on. This is the backup UPS, CyberPower. Real pretty front end on it. It's the stove is always plugged into it, and it has a relay that bypasses the batteries inside this thing, and that way you use regular grid power until your power turns off. Now what happens is this thing sits at about, I don't know, 6 watts, sometimes 3 watts. That's the LED panel, the control panel in the stove, pulling a little bit of power. Now, I don't know how much this thing is new. I got it new off of Facebook Marketplace for about half price, so I was real happy about that. And it works great. Now, this thing, the pellet stove here, pulls about, at high output, at full output, it'll pull 200 watts, and at lowest output it pulls 100 watts. And either of those settings, this thing will run for probably almost an hour on those settings. It doesn't take any power at all. So the only thing you have to do is you have to shut the pellet stove off via the thermostat, so it'll shut itself down before this thing runs out of battery. I'm working on a excuse me, a circuit for that when the power the grid power goes out, that the thermostat will open circuit, and then the pellet stove will go into shutdown. And then when it shuts off, this thing doesn't have to supply any more power to it. So that, I don't usually run the pellet stove if I'm not here, but if something happens where I can't be here, then I need that thing to be able to shut down. So that's the only thing left. I think certain thermostats, they call them 24 volt AC or millivolt thermostats, I think they have that capability. You can use them to open circuit the, here's the wire, sorry for the insane glare. Here's the wire that came with it when I bought it, and it just needs to open circuit that somehow. So I think this thing works great. I pulled the batteries out of it, tested them, they are of equal capacity, and the thing is brand spanking new. It's a great deal, so definitely check your local used markets first. This is what I chose, the biggest one I could get, 1500 volt amps. It doesn't need it. The only time it pulls a little hard on it is when this thing first starts up. It has an electric heater, and the electric heater plus the fans pull 580 watts, and this thing can handle 580 watts for about 10 minutes. So if I have a power outage during startup, which should be really rare, it's going to have to shut down pretty quick. So all the testing I did both with full draw at 580 and at 100 and 200 watts, and this thing was just perfect. It was flawless. I'm so happy I got it. Also, the great thing about this particular one is it's pure Sine. So everything runs exactly as it should, and that's exactly what I wanted. And I paid, I don't even remember, Facebook Marketplace, it was $130. So it's brand spanking new out of the box, so I was pretty tickled. Anyway, so I showed you the drill, the hole saw I mean, and the thing works great. Our weather here is not really cold yet, but I don't know if there's anything else I need to explain here. I thought there was more. Yeah, I don't know about using caulking on the output pipe because it gets really hot. So I had some high temperature black, but it dried up in the tube, so I'll have to get another. It was rated to 500 degrees, so that would probably work okay. And it would look better, but I think that aluminum is peeling off, so it's not sealed as good as it could. And that's been like that for a whole season, so now we've started a new season. And I'll show you the pellets we use. It's because mostly they're the only thing available. We get these at Home Depot. Everything else is too far away or way too expensive. So these produce a lot of ash and a lot of heat. Now this stove is, ash is not a problem because it has the ability to, here, let me get my magic tool. These 5-way tools are really good to have around a stove for moving the pellets around. But also, if you need to get in here and clean all this ash out, watch how this works. You pull this open, and it's like a trap door, and you can scoop everything out. And there's a huge pan in the bottom of this thing. You could empty it probably 3 or 4 times before you have to take it and dump it. So what I liked about this pellet stove is it doesn't require an ash vacuum, which is another freaking expense, you know. If these have glowing embers in them, you just scoop them into the bottom and let them cool off till the next day, and you're fine. It's no big deal. The other thing I like about this tool is sometimes you get pellets that are kind of stuck and some ash and things, and you can just go in and clean it up real quick. It's just a 5-way paint tool. You can get it anywhere for next to nothing. In fact, I probably got this at the flea market years ago. Anyway, so that's one of the reasons I like this. What's it called? A Whitfield Profile 30. It's old, it's 20 years old, but it served us very well. I need to clean up the mess underneath there. But the other thing that's worked really well is this whole thing. I did a whole video on it. You know, I've walked on it 100 times and it's just fine. It works really well. So you have to refer back to that video for details. But it was the cheapest heat pad I could put under this thing, and it works like a charm. So right now we've got 50. We just got a pallet. The neighbor came over and he stacked all these in here for me, and a bunch in the back bedroom, and so we're set for the season. Probably have to buy another pallet, I don't know, January or something, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, the best thing about this hole is this guy right here. Sorry I keep turning it on, I think it's so pretty. Anyway, this is, you know, something that's pure sine. You don't have to have pure sine is my understanding, but I know if you run it on pure sine, everything works the way it's supposed to. And you don't have to, you know, you don't have to worry about the electronics or the motors running funny or running hot because it's on, I don't know what to call it, the artificial sine, the unpure sine wave. Some are less pure than others, I can tell you that for a fact. Anyway, I have all these test strips, these power strips hooked up so I can turn it off and measure power draw and all that stuff. These kilowatt meters are very educational when you want to know how much your pellet stove draws and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what happened this past month. Our electric bill was $22. Now that's offset by the fact that I burned 2 whole bags of pellets. Right now it's a pretty warm part of the year down here in the Arizona desert, where it burns about 1 bag a week, but I promise you in December, January, February it burns a bag a day. Sometimes 2 days, but it goes to a bag a day, worst case. So anyway, I also lubed the, I can't show it to you, I put everything back together. I lubed the auger motor. There's an external bearing way up high and there's a hole there, and you put some oil in it. I don't have the fancy dancy synthetic, so I went out in the garage and this is what I have. And this stuff's awful thin. You wouldn't believe it, but so I did the blower motor, the one that gets so hot, the one that pushes the exhaust out, and I did the auger this season ahead of time with that very oil and a tool I made. Just a piece of wire, nothing fancy. And the only fancy part is I bent an end on it, and the reason is to get into the well, you know what, I'm just gonna have to show you. If I haven't bored you enough, I'm gonna finish the job right here. Okay, so boy, that's gonna be a tough one, isn't it? Well, there's the motor here, and in order to get the oil into the bearings, which are right inside, God, let's do some lighting, Mike. There you go. See those slots at the very end of the motor? The bearing is right under this little foamy pad right there that keeps this thing from rattling so much. Anyway, and you dip this thing in the oil. Here was my rule. I dip it in about 1 inch deep, let it drip twice, and then reach in there and reach down to where the bearing is and tap where the bearing and the shaft meet. And that's how I lubricated that without taking it apart. I did that last year when this motor seized up. Now, we had bought it used from somebody, and it's 20 years old, and they didn't do any maintenance on it. And it seized up and filled the whole house with smoke. Like, you know where the hot air comes out, right where those golden grates are, the brass? It was puking dense smoke right out of that same exhaust. It was horrible. And it's because this motor seized up. So I lubed it up, and because that oil I showed you is all I have, and it works like a charm. So I pre-lubed it again this year for, you know, in advance of the season, and it works really good. It's nice. It's relatively quiet, And then the auger, I can't show you, it's stuck way in the back, but there's a hole by the upper bearing, and you just take this same tool, you drip it in the oil, and you dab it in that hole, and it takes, most AC motors will say right on it 30 weight, because AC motors are very low torque, and if the bearings get stiff or dry, they tend to not start, or in our case it was so bad it seized up. But anyway, it works perfectly. This thing hums. There's a little vibration. I think the fans may be out of balance from dust on them. I cleaned them up pretty good when we first bought it. But the other problem is these aren't, they call them bearings, but they're not. They're bronze bushings, so there's no ball bearings in these things. So as they get older and they wear, they wobble. So anyway, I made this out of some hobby wire. I think this is probably music wire, but whatever you got works fine, and it applied the oil really well. I was really tickled. So yeah, somebody's gonna nag at me about that, but I don't have 30 bucks for the special high temp oil. It does say in a lot of instruction manuals I've read, use high temp synthetic. Well, there it is right there. Transmission fluid might work too. It's usually 10 or 20 weight, and that says 1030 on it. So I'm gonna try it, see what happens. I'd rather have the right stuff, but when you're poor, you use what you have. This is the, there's a, come on baby. There's a, it's hard to see, but this moves in and out and slows the airflow down out of the exhaust. But I have it completely on full. I want as much exhaust leaving this stove as humanly possible. Our house is pretty sizable, and you have to find the threaded hole by hand here. And this collar is what holds the thing all the way in the open position. Most stoves have some sort of a collar on them like that. So anyway, don't mean to keep rattling. I'm trying to show you what I was supposed to complete months ago, which was the fresh air intake, which it now has. And that happened at the same time as our very pretty displayed CyberPower 1500 VA. I forget the part number, it's pretty long, but it's pure sine wave. That's the thing I really wanted to have, and I lucked out because pure sine wave is a lot more expensive. Alright, I'm done rattling. I hope this was helpful. It completes probably the series unless some other maintenance issue comes up. Have a good winter, folks. Talk to you later. See you, bye.